Hey guys, so I wanted to do a review of the Sony Xperia XA1 Ultra, which is the bigger brother of the XA1 phone, which I did actually enjoy in terms of the build quality. So I wanted to see what the bigger one was like here, and this is a 6-inch kind of phablet device, and will run you about €300 compared to €200 for the XA1 little version. So I wanted to, check the device out, see how the camera was, see how the gaming was on this phone. So first we can talk about the build quality. Similar to the XA1, very nice in terms of the omnibalance design here. Typical Sony, highly constructed with a nice metal chamfer going around the edges here. It is 6 inches, so it's quite a big phone, but it doesn't feel unwieldy. The bezels are a little bit big at the top, but as you can see, they have really maximised the screen here and limited the bezel at the sides, which is pretty nice, and possibly like a preview of what's to come from Sony, because they are going to be releasing a new flagship later in the year, and they better use this design because it is very space efficient. You're getting a front-facing selfie shooter, as you can see, which is a little bit better than your standard one, and a camera on the back here, which is going to be quite an average camera, nothing too special, I'm guessing, but we will check that out. No fingerprint sensor, unfortunately. Usually we do get a fingerprint sensor with Sony phones, but you do get a shutter button on the side here for your photography, which is nice. We're getting Type-C as well, so they're not behind on that one. So the build quality is very solid here, nicely constructed. It doesn't pick up too many fingerprints on the back, but there are a few fingerprints on the front, as you can see. Not the best oleophobic coating. In terms of the display, you can see it is quite a nice display here, typical LCD technology. I have noticed it isn't quite as bright as what you're getting with the smaller version. So if we just put these on the same brightness here, we can see the actual brightness is pretty different here. It's like completely much brighter on the XA1 for some reason. So you are going to have to bump the brightness up to the max here to make the most of the display, which will have an effect on the battery life. Now Sony's only put a 2700 battery in there, which is too small for a phablet. It could have been much bigger, I think. But you are getting a front-facing flash compared to not on the XA1, so that is a bonus here. And the display is decent, I think it's not going to be too bad on your eyes, but I think it could have been better at the same time. I think also in terms of the processor, we're getting a MediaTek processor. I hope Sony does start to move away from MediaTek processors, because they do feel a little bit slow compared to Snapdragon devices. They're alright when you're using like a few apps here. Let me just turn the screen brightness down again a little bit. If we just open up a few apps, you can see the actual speed is pretty good. It's a Helio P20 processor. So going into stuff here is nice and snappy on first look, but when you really start to use these processors like multitasking, etc., you will notice that it starts to lag compared to what you're getting with the Qualcomm solution or Exynos. So, hopefully Sony will start putting Snapdragon 6 series in the more mid-range phones, because it is, I think, a bit cost-cutting here. I think most basic users won't think it's too bad, though, day-to-day in terms of the usage. In terms of the other stuff, the camera, I have been out and about with this. Apparently it's got the same sensor as the Z series of before, like the Z3, etc. And day to day, I think you're going to get some very nice shots from the device. You can see in terms of your lower light here, very decent and usable. It's not going to win any awards. It's not up there with the latest flagships, but I think for social media, it's more than sufficient, really. I think it struggles a little bit in terms of the background areas here. You can see quite a lot of exposure issues, but it does some very nice HDR shots overall, and is quite a capable shooter here. So I will, blow them up on your screen here so you can have a look. You can also see there's a nice selfie shooter on this phone as well, which I think is good for social media again. So if you're into that, it is a bonus. The video recording, I think, is a bit more standard here. It's nothing too special. Full HD, it'll get the job done again, but you're not going to get the same kind of quality, I think, from the Sony flagships. I think it does support steady shot though, so it's nice and smooth. And I think the zoom's a little bit grainy compared to what it could be. So it's a capable shooter here, capable camera, but a bit mid-range at the same time. I think for the price you're paying, I think they could have done a little bit better, because for €300 you could get the Honor 8 or something like that, which has a far superior camera solution. But the actual software is quite nice. It does give you some things you can do here, such as your AR effects and your manual mode as well. You got superior auto that we all know and love. I do think the camera app does need a revamp. It has been like this for years now, and it would be nice if we saw something different a little bit. In terms of the actual software experience, it's nice and Sony here, in terms of it's a little bit stockish, but at the same time you get the Sony good stuff like your equalizer. If you go into the settings here, you can see the Walkman settings here, and then you can optimize your headphones based upon what you're using, so that's quite nice. You're also getting the app drawer here with the Sony recommended feature. So it's a Sony kind of experience here, very nice and well optimized, I think, for Android. In terms of the actual Android underneath this, you are getting, I don't think the latest version, but you are getting the Android 7.0 with the June patch level. So not too bad here in terms of the patch level, but it would be nice if Sony was releasing it on the latest Android version. So overall, I think it's a pretty solid device. How does it fare in terms of gaming? That is a good question. So if we just go to a gaming session that I have started up here, and we're just using this game, which is a helicopter kind of game here. So I think it's coming with a graphics card in there similar to Exynos devices. I might have to double check that, but you can see the actual game experience, because of that edge-to-edge display, is very good here, and it's got some nice speakers as well. So I think my only concern would be the battery life in gaming, because it may take quite a toll, because you've got the screen brightness on high and the battery capacity is not that big. But it's very good here in terms of the frame rate, it's quite impressive. But I don't think people who are buying this phone are probably going to be buying it for gaming primarily. I think they're going to be probably playing a few games on it, but it won't be their primary gaming device. I think this would probably suit someone who's more using it for business purposes. So overall, a very capable device here. Just be aware of some of the shortcomings. I think in terms of the overall stuff like the camera, the gaming, etc., it does the job. But there's definitely, I think, better choices on the market right now in terms of this price range, like your the Axon 7, for example, Honor 8. They've all come down to the same kind of price level here. But I hope that Sony definitely uses this kind of like bezel-less design for its flagships. It just doesn't make any sense to me why they keep putting bezels on their high-end phones when they've got an amazing design here with these two. So yeah, just a quick little review here of the XA1 Ultra. I hope you find it helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.